The sky over Seoul turned red at exactly 6:47 in the morning. Minyo Park was drinking coffee on the observation deck of Sentinel-7, Earth's orbital defense station, when the alarm started screaming. He dropped his cup and ran to the command center. What he saw made his blood freeze. Massive black ships were dropping through the clouds like stones falling into water. They were huge, each one bigger than 10 city blocks. The ships were shaped like daggers, dark as midnight, and they moved with terrible purpose. Minyo had been a captain in Earth Defense Force for 12 years. He had never seen anything like this. "All stations battle alert," he shouted into his communicator.
"This is not a drill."
Below him, on Earth's surface, the first plasma beams hit Seoul. Minho watched through the monitors as entire neighborhoods vanished in balls of fire. The ancient palaces, the modern towers, the parks where children played, all burning. The alien ships fired again and again, methodical and merciless. They were not trying to conquer. They were trying to erase. His communicator exploded with panicked voices from other stations. New York was burning. London was burning. Mumbai, Tokyo, Mexico City, all of them under attack. The alien ships had appeared over every major city on Earth at the same moment. This was coordinated. This was planned. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," his communications officer said. Her hands were shaking. "It's coming from the lead ship." "Put it on screen." The face that appeared was not human. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, skin like gray stone, and a mouth that moved in strange ways. When it spoke, the words came through a translator, cold and emotionless. "Attention, humans. You are an infestation. Your species spreads disorder and chaos. The Vectari Empire has judged you unworthy of existence. You have 72 hours to surrender all military forces. If you comply, your deaths will be swift. If you resist, we will make your extinction slow and painful. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. Minyo stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. 72 hours. 3 days to save humanity. "Launch all fighters," he ordered. "Get me Admiral Tajan on the line. And someone find out what the hell a Vectari is." Down on Earth's surface, in the ruins of Seoul, Hana Choi pulled herself from the rubble. Her ears were ringing. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead. She had been walking to work at the hospital when the first blast hit. Now the hospital was gone. Everything was gone. She stumbled through the smoke and fire, calling out for survivors. The heat was intense. Buildings that were standing minutes ago were now twisted metal and broken concrete. Bodies lay everywhere. Some people were crying. Others just stood and stared, their minds unable to process what had happened. "Help me," a voice called from beneath a collapsed wall. Hana ran toward the sound. A young woman was trapped, her leg pinned under concrete. Hana tried to lift the debris, but it was too heavy. 2 other survivors saw her struggling and came to help. Together, they freed the woman. "We need to get underground," Hana said. "The subway tunnels. They're hitting the surface, so we go down." She gathered everyone she could find, maybe 20 people, and led them to the nearest subway entrance. The stairs were cracked but passable. They descended into darkness, leaving the burning world behind. In the tunnel, they found hundreds of others. People were scared, confused, crying for lost loved ones. But they were alive. Hana organized them quickly. She was a trauma nurse and knew how to stay calm in chaos. "Listen to me," she said loudly. "We need light, water, and medical supplies. Search the station. Work in groups. Stay together." As people moved to follow her instructions, Hana looked at their faces. These were teachers, office workers, students, ordinary people thrust into a nightmare. She wondered how many would survive the next 3 days. Far away from Earth, on Europa, one of Jupiter's frozen moons, Dr. Yuna Kim was in her research lab when the emergency broadcast came through. She watched the footage from Earth in horror. Her parents lived in Seoul. Her brother worked in New York. She tried calling them, but all communications were jammed. Yuna was a xenobiologist. She studied alien life, or what little evidence of it humans had found. In 20 years of research, humanity had discovered bacteria on Mars, simple organisms in the ice of Europa, but nothing intelligent. Nothing advanced. The galaxy had seemed empty. Now they knew why. Someone had been keeping quiet. Someone had been watching. Yuna went to her database and started searching. If these Vectari had been observing Earth, there might be traces. Radio signals they had intercepted. Patterns in the cosmic background noise. Anything. She worked for hours, forgetting to eat, forgetting to sleep. And then she found it. A signal from 30 years ago, brief and encrypted. It had been logged as natural interference, but now Una saw it for what it was. A transmission. She fed it through every decryption program she had. When the message finally decoded, her hands went cold. It was a Vectari scout report. It said humanity was dangerously unpredictable and resistant to authority. It recommended monitoring but not contact. The date on the transmission was 2157, the same year humans had established their first Mars colony. They had been watching for 30 years, planning, waiting. Una sent her findings to Earth Defense Force immediately. Then she added a note. The Vectari fear something about us. I don't know what yet, but it's in their language patterns. They're not just destroying us. They're afraid of us. Back in orbit, Captain Minho led the counterattack. 20 Earth defense ships against 300 Vectari vessels. He knew the odds. He did it anyway. All ships, attack formation Delta, he commanded. Target their weapon systems. Don't try to destroy them, just slow them down. The human ships accelerated, their railguns firing. The Vectari ships barely seemed to notice. Their shields absorbed the projectiles like rain hitting a roof. Then the Vectari returned fire. Minho watched in horror as ship after ship exploded on his screen. Brave men and women. His friends, his crew dying in flashes of light. Captain Shields at 15%. His tactical officer shouted, "We can't take another hit." All remaining ships retreat to the dark side of the moon, Minho ordered. His voice was steady even though his heart was breaking. We regroup and try again. Only 3 ships made it to the rally point. 17 were destroyed. The Vectari hadn't even moved their main fleet. That night, as Minho sat in his damaged ship, he received Admiral Tajin's transmission. The Admiral looked old and tired. "The Security Council is meeting," Tajin said. "Some want to surrender. They say we can't win against this technology." "And what do you say, Admiral?" Minho asked. Tajin was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled grimly. "I say we make them regret coming here. I say we show these Vectari what humans do when we're backed into a corner." On Europa, Una sent another message to Earth. "I found something else in the transmissions. The Vectari encountered another species once, 300 years ago. That species fought them for decades. The Vectari still have nightmares about it. They expect us to surrender quickly. If we don't, if we keep fighting, it might break them." In the tunnels beneath Seoul, Hana Choi tended to the wounded by flashlight. Someone had found a radio, and they were listening to the emergency broadcasts. The world's leaders were calling for unity. Scientists were analyzing the alien technology. Military forces were regrouping. A young boy sat next to Hana, his eyes wide with fear. "Are the monsters coming back?" he asked. Hana put her hand on his shoulder. "Yes," she said honestly, "but we're going to fight them. We're going to survive." She didn't know if that was true, but she said it anyway, because hope was all they had left. Above them, the Vectari ships continued their assault. Earth burned under alien fire, and humanity faced its first night of a war they never asked for. 3 months had passed since the sky turned red. 3 months since the Vectari came. Earth looked different now. The beautiful blue planet was covered in smoke and ash. Cities that once glowed with light at night were dark ruins, but humanity had not surrendered. Hana Choi stood in what used to be a shopping district in Seoul. Now it was a command center for the resistance. She had gone from being a nurse to being a fighter. The change had happened quickly. When you watch your world burn, you either give up or you fight back. Hana chose to fight. She had 5,000 people under her command now. Most of them had never held a weapon before the invasion. They were teachers, store owners, students, grandparents. But they learned fast. Pain is a good teacher. "The Vectari patrol comes through this area every 3 days," said Junho, a former taxi driver who was now Hana's second in command. He pointed at a map spread across a broken table. "They take the same route every time, same number of soldiers." "They think we're beaten," Hana said. "They think we're hiding in fear. That's their mistake." The Vectari ground soldiers wore heavy armor and carried weapons that could cut through concrete. They were bigger than humans, stronger, and their technology was centuries ahead. But Hana had discovered something important. Their armor ran on electromagnetic systems. And electromagnetic systems had a weakness. "Is the EMP ready?" she asked. A young woman named Minji nodded. Before the invasion, she had been an engineering student. Now she built weapons from salvaged parts. "It's crude, but it should work. If we can get close enough." We'll get close enough, Hana said. That night they set their trap. The resistance fighters hid in the ruins, waiting in the darkness. Hana's heart pounded as she heard the heavy footsteps of the Vectari patrol approaching. 6 soldiers just like always. They walked through the street like they owned it. Because they did. When the Vectari reached the center of the kill zone, Hana gave the signal. Minji activated the EMP device. A pulse of electromagnetic energy exploded outward. Invisible but powerful, the Vectari soldiers' armor went dark. Their weapons stopped working. For the first time, they were vulnerable. The resistance fighters opened fire from every direction. It wasn't elegant or heroic. It was desperate and brutal. But when the smoke cleared, all 6 Vectari soldiers were dead. Hana stood over one of the bodies, breathing hard. They had won. It was a small victory. Just 6 soldiers out of thousands, but it was a victory. It proved the Vectari could bleed. Take their equipment, she ordered. We need to study it. And send a message to the other resistance cells. Tell them we found a way to fight back. Far above Earth in the asteroid belt, Captain Minho Park was surviving day by day. After the disastrous first battle, he had fled with the remaining Earth defense ships. Now he led a ragtag fleet of 30 vessels hiding among the asteroids. They were refugees, but they were also warriors waiting for a chance to strike. Life on the ships was hard. Food was rationed. Water was recycled until it barely tasted like water anymore. People were crammed into spaces meant for half their number. But nobody complained. Complaining was a luxury they couldn't afford. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth, said his communications officer. It's encrypted. Resistance frequency. Minho's pulse quickened. Communications from Earth were rare. The Vectari jammed most signals. Put it through. The voice that came through was female, young, determined. It was Hana. This is sole resistance to any Earth forces. We've engaged the enemy and won. I repeat, we found a way to fight them. Their armor is vulnerable to electromagnetic pulse. We've captured Vectari communication equipment. If anyone out there is listening, we need help getting this intel to whoever's in charge. We can win this. We just need to work together. Minho felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Send a response. Tell them we're coming. And get me Admiral Tajan. The Admiral responded within an hour. Tajan was hiding in a facility deep in the Himalayas, one of the few command centers the Vectari hadn't found yet. His face on the screen looked older than Minho remembered, lined with stress and grief. I heard the message from Seoul, Tajan said. Is it real? Can we really hurt them? I believe so, sir, Minho replied. And I think it's time we stopped hiding. Time we hit back. Tajan nodded slowly. I've been working on something. Operation Broken Spear. We can't match their technology, but we can use their psychology against them. Dr. Yuna Kim found something in their transmissions. The Vectari expect quick victories. Long resistance breaks their morale. They're afraid of species that won't quit. Then we don't quit, Minho said simply. On Europa, Dr. Yuna Kim was buried in her research. She had decoded hundreds of Vectari transmissions now. The picture they painted was fascinating and terrifying. The Vectari Empire had conquered 40 species over 2,000 years. Most surrendered within weeks. Those that fought rarely lasted more than a year. But there was one species, the transmissions called them the Unbroken Ones, that had resisted for 300 years. The Vectari had eventually won, but the cost had been enormous. The trauma still echoed in their communications. They feared another long war. Yuna typed her report quickly. Recommendation: do not engage in traditional warfare. Vectari expect overwhelming force to produce surrender. Instead, use guerrilla tactics. Make every victory cost them. Make them afraid. Psychological warfare is our best weapon. She sent the report to Admiral Tajan, then sat back and rubbed her tired eyes. Through her lab window, she could see Jupiter hanging in the black sky, massive and beautiful. She wondered if she would ever see Earth again, if there would be an Earth to see. Her communicator beeped. A message from her assistant. Doctor, you should see this. We detected something in the ice. Yuna went to the drilling site. Her team had been extracting samples from Europa's underground ocean, looking for life. They had found it, but not the kind they expected. In the ice was a capsule, artificial, ancient. Inside was a data device. How old is this? Yuna asked. At least 5,000 years, her assistant said. Maybe older. Yuna activated the device carefully. It took hours to interface with their computers, but eventually it worked. What she saw made her call Admiral Tajan immediately. "Admiral, Europa had visitors before," she said. "A species that left a warning beacon. The message says the Vectari came to their world too. It says the Vectari can be beaten, but only if you make them more afraid of you than you are of them." Back on Earth, Admiral Tajan assembled the resistance leaders through encrypted channels. Hana participated from Sol. Minho joined from the asteroid belt. Leaders from Africa, Europe, South America, and Asia all connected. They were a scattered, broken force, but they were united in purpose. "The Vectari think they've already won," Tajan said. "They're consolidating their control, preparing for occupation. They expect us to surrender any day now. Instead, we're going to hit them everywhere at once. We're going to show them we're not prey. We're predators." "Operation Broken Spear begins in 72 hours, he continued. "Every resistance cell, every hidden military unit, every survivor with a weapon, everyone attacks simultaneously. We target their supply lines, their patrols, their communication networks. We use the EMP tactic that Sol discovered. We make them bleed." "Admiral," said a voice from the African resistance, "we don't have enough weapons. We don't have enough people. How do we win?" "We don't need to win," Tajan replied. "Not yet. We just need to survive. We need to make them realize that conquering Earth will cost more than we're worth. We make them choose to leave," Hana spoke up. "And if they don't leave? If they decide to just wipe us out? Then we make sure they remember us," Tajan said quietly. "We make sure the galaxy knows humanity didn't go quietly." The meeting ended. Plans were made. Weapons were distributed. The resistance prepared for the largest coordinated attack since the invasion began. Minho took his fleet out of hiding. They couldn't fight the Vectari fleet directly, but they could raid supply convoys. They could be pirates and ghosts, striking and vanishing. Hana trained her fighters in the ruins of Sol. They practiced with the EMP devices, learning to time the attacks perfectly. Many would die, she knew, but they would die fighting. 72 hours later, at precisely midnight Greenwich Mean Time, the resistance struck. In 500 cities across 6 continents, EMP devices activated simultaneously. Vectari patrols went dark. Their armor failed. And humanity, armed with weapons both ancient and improvised, attacked. The Battle of Earth's Long Night had begun. In Seoul, in Lagos, in Sao Paulo, in the ruins of Sydney and Moscow and Cairo, humans fought back. They used guns and explosives, knives and tools, anything they could find. They fought in streets and tunnels, in buildings and sewers. They fought with the rage of a species pushed to extinction. The Vectari were shocked. For 8 hours they were on the defensive. 8 hours where humanity proved they were not beaten. 8 hours of small victories that added up to something larger. Hope. But hope comes with a price. When dawn broke and the EMPs burned out, the Vectari responded with fury. Their ships descended on the resistance strongholds. The bombardment was merciless. Hana watched from the tunnels as Seoul burned again. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The Vectari response came swiftly and without mercy. They called it the cleansing. Humanity would come to call it the darkest week. The massive Vectari warships, which had been positioned in high orbit, descended lower. Their weapons, previously used to destroy cities, now targeted continents. South America was chosen first, perhaps as punishment, perhaps at random. The reason didn't matter. The result was the same. Hana watched the broadcast from the tunnels beneath Seoul. The resistance had tapped into a satellite feed that somehow still worked. She watched as beams of pure energy hit the Amazon rainforest. The green jungle turned to fire, then to ash, then to glass. The heat was so intense it melted rock. 400 million people lived in South America. In 48 hours, most of them were gone. "Turn it off," Hana said quietly. Someone switched off the monitor, but the images remained burned in her mind. This was what the Vectari could do when they stopped being cautious. This was their true power. "We can't fight this," Junho said. His voice was hollow. "We hit them with everything we had and they responded by erasing a continent. What's the point?" Hana looked at her second-in-command, this former taxi driver who had become a soldier. She saw the despair in his eyes and recognized it because she felt it too. But she couldn't let it show. "The point," she said, "is that we're still alive. Every day we breathe is a day they haven't won. That has to be enough." But she wondered if she believed her own words. In the asteroid belt, Captain Minho Park received the casualty reports from Earth. The numbers were so large they became meaningless. How do you comprehend 400 million deaths? The human mind wasn't built for that kind of grief. His fleet was down to 27 ships. They had raided 3 Vectari supply convoys with some success. But success felt empty now. What good were small victories when the enemy could destroy continents? Captain, Admiral Tajin is requesting all ships return to Mars orbit, his communications officer said. He says it's urgent. Mars. The red planet had become humanity's last major stronghold. The Vectari had focused on Earth and hadn't bothered much with the smaller colonies. Mars had factories, weapons, and most importantly, a secret project. Minho set course for Mars, wondering what the Admiral had planned. Wondering if any plan could matter against an enemy this powerful. When Minho's fleet arrived at Mars, he saw something that made his tired heart beat faster. Ships, dozens of them hidden in the shadow of Mars's moons. Not military vessels, cargo ships, mining transports, colony vessels. Every space-worthy craft humanity could gather. Admiral Tajin's face appeared on his screen. The Admiral looked exhausted but determined. Captain Park, welcome to Operation Final Throw. We're going to attack the Vectari mothership. Minho stared. Sir, with respect, that's suicide. We barely scratched their smaller ships. The mothership is 40 kilometers long, yes, Tajin interrupted. Protected by shields that can absorb nuclear weapons, carrying enough firepower to glass a planet. I know, Captain. And we're going to destroy it anyway. The Admiral explained the plan. It was insane, desperate, and brilliant. Dr. Yuna had discovered that the Vectari shields worked by dispersing energy across their entire surface. The more impacts, the weaker each individual point became. If they could hit the mothership with enough ships at the exact same moment, the shields would fail for a brief window. How brief? Minho asked. 30 seconds, maybe less. And in that 30 seconds, Tajin smiled grimly. We have something special. Meet Commander Sung-Soo Han. He's been building it for 2 months. Another face appeared on screen, a young man with grease stains on his face and fire in his eyes. Captain Park, Sung-Soo said, I've built a railgun on Phobos. It's the biggest gun humanity has ever made. One shot, tungsten projectile accelerated to 15% of light speed. If we can get the mothership's shields down, I can put a hole through its core. One shot, Minho repeated. What if you miss? Then we're all dead anyway, Sung-Soo said simply. The fleet prepared. Engineers worked around the clock, converting cargo ships into flying bombs. The ships were loaded with electromagnetic pulse devices, nuclear weapons, anything that could damage shields. Pilots volunteered, knowing they wouldn't come back. These were one-way trips. Minho walked through his ship, talking to his crew. Most were young, too young for this war. They should have been in college, starting careers, falling in love. Instead, they were preparing to die in space. Captain, said a young woman named Gina. She was 19, maybe 20. My family was in São Paulo, they're gone now. So this is all I have left. This chance to hurt the bastards who took them. I'm glad to do it. Minho put his hand on her shoulder. He wanted to say something wise, something comforting. But there were no words for this. So he just nodded and she nodded back, and that was enough. The day of the attack arrived. 70 ships would make the assault run. 27 military vessels that could fire weapons, and 43 converted cargo ships packed with explosives and EMP devices. Against the Vectari mothership and its escort fleet of 100 warships. All ships, this is Admiral Tajin. The Admiral's voice came through every speaker. Today, we're not fighting for victory. We're fighting so the galaxy remembers we were here. We're fighting so our children's children know humanity didn't bow. Whatever happens, you've already won. You've already proven we're more than the Vectari thought. Now let's prove we're more than they can handle. The fleet jumped to Earth orbit. The Vectari mothership hung there like a dark moon, surrounded by its defenders. Alarms immediately sounded in the alien vessels. They had detected the human fleet. All ships, attack speed, Minho ordered. Don't slow down. Don't stop. Hit them with everything. The battle that followed was chaos. Human ships dove toward the mothership, firing every weapon they had. Vectari defenders responded with overwhelming force. Ship after ship exploded in balls of fire. Minho watched his tactical display as names disappeared from the roster. Friends, colleagues, fellow humans gone in seconds, but they kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more pushed through. The converted cargo ships, too large and clumsy to dodge, flew straight and true. Their pilots screamed defiance as they crashed into the mothership's shields, detonating their payloads. "Shields holding," Minho's tactical officer reported. "But they're weakening. 40%, 30-20. Commander Han, are you ready?" Minho shouted into the comm. On Phobos, Sung-Soo stood at the railgun controls. The weapon was enormous, built into the moon itself. It had taken every engineer on Mars to construct it. It would only fire once, the recoil would destroy it. "One shot to save humanity." "Ready," Sung-Soo replied. His voice was calm. Waiting for the window, 3 more cargo ships hit the mothership. The shields flickered. 10%, the tactical officer shouted. 5, shields failing. "Now," Minho screamed. "Fire now." Sung-Soo pressed the firing button. The railgun roared. A projectile weighing 2 tons, moving at 15% of light speed, crossed the distance to the mothership in 0.8 seconds. Nothing could stop it. Nothing could deflect it. The projectile hit the mothership's center section and kept going. It punched through 30 layers of armor like they were paper. It tore through command decks and engine rooms and fuel cells. And then the mothership exploded, not all at once. The explosion started at the core and rippled outward, section by section. The massive ship broke apart in a cascade of secondary blasts. Pieces the size of city blocks spun off into space. The light from the explosion was so bright it could be seen from Earth's surface. For a moment, everything stopped. Both fleets just watched as the impossible happened. The Vectari mothership, the pride of their fleet, the vessel that had conquered 40 worlds, died. Then the Vectari fleet broke. Without the mothership's command structure, the alien ships scattered. Some tried to fight. Most tried to flee. The remaining human ships, battered and desperate, pursued. It wasn't organized. It wasn't elegant. But it was effective. When the battle ended, 60 Vectari ships were destroyed. The rest had jumped to faster than light speed, fleeing toward the outer solar system. Of the 70 human ships that began the attack, only 8 survived. Minho's was one of them, barely. His ship had no weapons left, no shields, and life support was failing, but they had won. Against impossible odds, humanity had destroyed a Vectari mothership. On Mars, Commander Sung-Soo stood in the ruins of the railgun platform, laughing and crying at the same time. The weapon had destroyed itself in the firing, just as predicted. But it had worked. His one shot had mattered. On Earth, in the tunnels beneath Sol, Hana and her resistance fighters watched the replay of the battle. When the mothership exploded, they erupted in cheers. People were hugging, crying, shouting. For months they had known only loss and fear. Now finally they had hope. Admiral Tajin transmitted a message to the fleeing Vectari fleet. His voice was cold and hard. "This is Admiral Tajin of Earth Defense Force. You came to our world thinking we were weak. You thought we would surrender. You were wrong. That mothership you just lost? That's the price of your arrogance. Leave our system. Leave now, or we'll destroy every ship you have." The Vectari didn't respond, but their ships continued fleeing toward Neptune, regrouping at the edge of the solar system. 6 months after the mothership fell, humanity looked different. They had learned to live in ruins. They had learned to fight. They had learned to hate. In the underground cities beneath Earth's surface, 3 billion people survived. The tunnels stretched for thousands of miles, lit by salvaged Vectari power cells. Children went to school in old subway stations. Factories operated in parking garages. Life continued, but it was a hard life. A life lived in shadows. Hana Choi was a general now, though she never asked for the title. She commanded Earth's ground forces, 2 million soldiers drawn from every nation. They trained constantly in the ruins above, learning to fight in ways the Vectari wouldn't expect. Her manual, How to Kill the Enemy, was required reading for every soldier. She stood in what used to be a park in Seoul, now a training ground. Soldiers practiced with new weapons, human guns modified with Vectari technology. They were crude compared to pure alien weapons, but they worked. More importantly, humans could build them. "General, the new recruits are ready for inspection," Junho said. He was a colonel now, scarred from a dozen battles but still standing. Hana walked along the line of soldiers. They were young, all of them. Anyone over 40 had been alive when Earth was peaceful. These young ones had known only war. They were harder, meaner, more dangerous than any generation before. "You're here because you want to kill the enemy," Hana said bluntly. "Good. Hate is a weapon. Use it. But remember, we're not fighting for revenge. We're fighting to survive. Every Vectari you kill is one less that can hurt humanity. Make it count, the soldiers saluted. Hana saw the fire in their eyes and recognized it. She had the same fire. It burned in every human who remained. On Mars, the transformation was even more dramatic. The red planet had become a forge world. Every surface dedicated to building weapons. Commander Sung Soo Han oversaw the production. 600 new warships in 6 months. They were smaller than Vectari vessels, built for speed and pack tactics rather than direct confrontation. We can't beat them one-on-one, Sung Soo explained to his engineering teams. So we build ships that attack in groups. 10 human ships against 1 Vectari. 20 against 2. We overwhelmed them with numbers. The new ships weren't pretty. They were utilitarian, efficient, built with salvaged materials and reverse-engineered alien technology. But they were armed with weapons that could hurt the Vectari. That was all that mattered. Dr. Yuna Kim worked day and night on Europa, analyzing every piece of Vectari technology they captured. She had become an expert on the enemy, understanding their weapons, their tactics, their psychology. Her insights had saved countless lives. The Vectari are divided, she reported to Admiral Taijin. Their communications show 3 factions arguing. Some want to finish us off, some want to retreat. A third group is saying something interesting. They're afraid of what we might become. Afraid? Taijin asked. Of us? We're not following their script, Yuna explained. Every other species they conquered either surrendered quickly or died fighting conventionally. We're doing neither. We're adapting, learning, using their own technology against them. We're becoming something they don't understand, and the unknown frightens them. This information shaped humanity's strategy. Admiral Taijin, now the de facto leader of Earth's military, pushed for aggressive expansion. Human forces retook the moon. They established forward bases on Ceres and Ganymede. They sent ships to raid Vectari positions constantly, never letting the enemy rest. We're the nightmare that won't end, Taijin told his staff. We're the species that refuses to die. We make them see us in their sleep. The psychological warfare was working. Intercepted Vectari communications showed declining morale. Soldiers were afraid of night raids. Officers questioned the occupation. The Vectari High Command, now operating from Neptune, struggled to maintain order. But the Vectari had one final card to play. The intelligence came from a captured Vectari officer. Hana's forces had ambushed a patrol near the ruins of Tokyo. Most of the aliens died fighting, but one was taken alive. Under interrogation, he revealed something that made every human blood run cold. The Annihilator, the alien said in broken human language. We build the Annihilator. It will end your star, end your sun, end everything. Hana immediately sent the information up the chain of command. Within hours, every satellite and telescope humanity had was pointed at Neptune. They found it, a massive station in orbit around the ice giant still under construction. Energy readings were off the charts. Dr. Yuna analyzed the data and confirmed the worst. It's a stellar destabilization weapon, she said. They're going to trigger a solar flare large enough to consume the inner solar system. Earth, Mars, Venus, all gone, and they're 90 days from completion. The news spread through human forces like electricity. 90 days until extinction. 90 days to stop the Annihilator or die trying. Admiral Taijin called an emergency council. Every military leader, every resistance commander, every scientist who mattered, all connected through encrypted channels. We have one option, Taijin said. We take the fight to Neptune. We destroy that station before it's operational. It's all or nothing. Admiral, we have 600 ships, Captain Minho said. He had been promoted to fleet commander after the mothership battle. Intelligence says the Vectari have 400 ships guarding Neptune. Even if we win the space battle, how do we take the station? We send ground forces, Hana said immediately. My soldiers. We board the station and destroy it from the inside. That's suicide, someone objected. The casualty rate will be... I don't care about the casualty rate, Hana interrupted coldly. I care about stopping that weapon. My people will do it. Give us the chance. The plan came together quickly. Operation Hellstorm would be humanity's largest military action ever. Every available ship would participate. Every soldier who could fight would be mobilized. Earth's survival depended on it. Minho would command the space fleet. His orders were simple. Destroy the Vectari defenders and create an opening for the ground assault. Hana would lead 4,000 Marines in a direct assault on the Annihilator station. Sungsu would provide artillery support from modified cargo vessels. The fleet assembled at Mars over 3 weeks. 600 human warships, the largest armada humanity had ever built. They weren't advanced. They weren't pretty. But they were armed, crewed, and ready. Minho walked through his flagship, the Indomitable, talking to his crew. Many were veterans of the mothership battle. Others were new, fresh from training. All knew what was at stake. A young pilot approached him, Gina Song, barely 19 years old. Her parents had died in the first days of the invasion. She had nothing left but the desire to fight. "Captain Minho," she said, "I've been assigned to a special mission. They're giving me a captured Vectari shuttle. My job is to fly through their security network, carrying a nuclear device. Target is the Vectari command ship." Minho looked at this young woman, this child forced to become a warrior. "That's a one-way trip, Lieutenant." "I know, sir," Gina said. Her voice was steady. "But if I can take out their command ship, it might turn the battle. That's worth one life. That's worth my life." Minho wanted to refuse, to find another way, but he knew she was right. War demanded sacrifices. "Make it count," he said quietly. "I will, sir." On Earth, Hana addressed her assault force. 4,000 Marines, all volunteers, all aware they probably wouldn't return. They wore salvaged Vectari armor, carried hybrid weapons, and trained in simulated stations until they could navigate blindfolded. "The Annihilator will destroy everything," Hana told them. "Our families, our homes, our species. We're going to stop it. Not because we're heroes, not because we're special, but because we're the only ones who can. When we land on that station, we advance. We don't stop. We don't surrender. We fight until the mission is complete or we're dead. Those are the only two options." The Marines roared their approval. Hana saw faces she knew. Junho, Minji, dozens of others who had survived the Soul Resistance. Good people, brave people about to face hell. "Mount up," she ordered. "We leave in 6 hours." Dr. Yuna remained on Europa, coordinating intelligence. She had done everything she could to prepare humanity for this battle. Now she could only watch and hope. Before the fleet departed, she sent a message to Admiral Tejan. "Admiral, I've been analyzing Vectari psychology for months. They're terrified of us now. We've lasted longer than any species they've encountered. If we win at Neptune, if we destroy the Annihilator, it might break them completely. They might surrender. And if we lose?" Tejan asked. "Then humanity dies fighting," Yuna said simply. "But the galaxy will remember we tried." The fleet jumped to Neptune. 600 human ships emerging from faster-than-light travel in a coordinated pattern. The Vectari defenders immediately detected them and sounded alarms. "All ships, attack formation," Minho commanded. "Remember the plan, wolf packs of 10. Surround and overwhelm. Don't fight fair. We're not here to be honorable. We're here to win." The Vectari fleet moved to intercept. 400 ships against 600. On paper, humanity had the advantage. But Vectari technology was still superior. This would be the largest space battle in human history, and it would decide everything. Hana stood in the assault transport, surrounded by her Marines. Through the viewport, she could see the battle beginning. The space around Neptune became a graveyard. Human ships swarmed like angry insects, attacking in groups of 10 or 20. They surrounded Vectari vessels and fired from every angle. The alien shields, designed to stop attacks from one direction, couldn't handle simultaneous fire from 12 different points. Captain Minho watched his tactical display as the battle unfolded. Green dots for human ships, red dots for Vectari. The reds were disappearing, but so were the greens. For every Vectari ship destroyed, humanity lost 3 or 4. The math was brutal, but it was working. Wolfpack 7 is destroyed, his tactical officer reported. Wolfpack 12 has lost half its ships. Wolfpack 3 reports. An explosion rocked the Indomitable. Alarms blared. Shields at 40%, someone shouted. Hull breach on deck 9. Keep firing, Minho ordered calmly. All weapons, continuous fire. Don't give them a chance to regroup. The battle raged for an hour. Ships exploded. Lives ended in flashes of light. The darkness of space filled with debris and the frozen bodies of the dead. But slowly, gradually, the Vectari defense crumbled. Then Minho saw it. The Vectari command ship, larger than the others, coordinating the defense. If he could take it out, the enemy formation would collapse. All ships, priority target, he broadcast. The command vessel. Hit it with everything. 30 human ships broke from their wolf packs and converged on the command ship. The Vectari vessel fought back desperately. its weapons cutting through human ships like paper. But there were too many targets, too many directions. And then Lieutenant Gina Song made her move. The young pilot flew the stolen Vectari shuttle through the chaos, mimicking alien flight patterns. The Vectari security systems recognized the shuttle as friendly. They let her pass. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. Gina accelerated to ramming speed. Her voice came through the comms one last time. For São Paulo, for my family, for humanity. The shuttle hit the command ship at full speed. The 50-megaton nuclear device detonated. The explosion was so large it destroyed 3 nearby Vectari ships. The command vessel broke apart, its systems failing, its crew dying. Minho closed his eyes for a moment, honoring the sacrifice. Gina had been so young. She should have lived a long life, fallen in love, had children. Instead, she died at 19, ramming a nuclear bomb into an alien warship. "Captain, the Vectari are breaking formation," the tactical officer shouted. Minho opened his eyes and looked at the display. The Vectari fleet was scattering. Without their command ship, without coordination, they were just individual vessels trying to survive. Some fought. Most fled. "All ships, advance," Minho ordered. "Don't let them regroup. Push them back." The human fleet surged forward. Ship after ship fell on both sides, but momentum had shifted. Humanity was winning. While the space battle raged, Hana Choi led her Marines onto the Annihilator station. The assault transports landed hard on the station's surface. Hatches blew open. 4,000 soldiers poured out, weapons firing. The Vectari defenders were ready. Heavy weapons positions opened fire. Marines fell, their bodies torn apart by alien weapons. But the humans kept coming. They had trained for this. They knew the price. Hana led from the front, her rifle spitting plasma bolts. Beside her, Junho provided covering fire. Minji hacked into door controls, opening pathways deeper into the station. The Marines advanced meter by meter, corridor by corridor. "Casualty report," Hana shouted over the gunfire. "We've lost 800 in the first 10 minutes. Someone replied, 800. 20% of her force. Hana pushed the number from her mind. She couldn't think about the dead now. She could mourn later. If there was a later, keep moving. We need to reach the core. The fighting was brutal. Vectari soldiers were bigger, stronger, their armor better. But humans were desperate, and desperation made them dangerous. They used grenades in close quarters. They flanked. They crawled through ventilation shafts. They fought dirty because they had no other choice. Hour after hour, the Marines pushed deeper. The corridors filled with smoke and blood. Both sides took terrible losses. Hana lost count of how many friends died beside her. She just kept moving forward, kept shooting, kept fighting. Dr. Yuna's voice came through her communicator, transmitted from Europa. "General, you're close to the reactor core. 20 more meters. The control system should be accessible from there. How do we destroy it?" Hana asked, ducking behind cover as plasma bolts flew overhead. "Overload the reactor. Set it to maximum output with no regulation. It'll go critical in about 3 minutes. You'll need to evacuate before then. 3 minutes. Could they even reach the core in 3 minutes? Understood. All Marines, final push. We end this now. The remaining Marines, maybe 2,000 out of 4,000, charged. They abandoned caution and threw themselves at the Vectari defenders. Some used themselves as shields so others could advance. It was suicide tactics, but it worked. Hana and 50 Marines burst into the reactor chamber. It was enormous, filled with pulsing energy. The Annihilator's power source, the weapon that would destroy Earth's sun, hummed with terrible potential. "Minji, get to the controls," Hana ordered. The engineer sprinted to the command console while the Marines formed a defensive perimeter. Vectari reinforcements were coming. She could hear their heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors. "I'm in," Minji shouted. "Starting the overload sequence." "How long?" 2 minutes to critical mass. Not 3 minutes, 2. They had even less time than Yuna thought. All Marines fall back to the transports. Double time. The Marines ran. Behind them, the reactor began to scream, its energy output climbing exponentially. Vectari soldiers tried to stop them, but the humans fought through. They left bodies in their wake, both human and alien, but they kept moving. Hana was the last one out of the reactor chamber. She looked back once at the pulsing core, at the weapon that would have destroyed her world. Not today, not ever. "Move." Junyo grabbed her arm and pulled her into the corridor. They ran through the station, following the path they had carved with bullets and blood. Behind them, the reactor's scream grew louder. Alarms blared throughout the station. The Vectari were evacuating too, abandoning their posts in panic. Hana and her surviving Marines reached the transports with 40 seconds to spare. The ships launched immediately, engines screaming as they pushed away from the station. "Faster!" Hana shouted at the pilot. "We need to be clear before..." The Annihilator exploded. The reactor went critical, its energy tearing the station apart from the inside. The explosion was massive, a miniature star blooming in the darkness. The shockwave hit the transport, sending it spinning. "Hold together!" the pilot yelled, fighting the controls. The ship held. Barely. When the shaking stopped, Hana looked out the viewport. The Annihilator was gone. Just debris now scattered across Neptune's orbit. The weapon that would have destroyed Earth existed only as wreckage. "Mission accomplished," she said quietly. Then louder, to her surviving Marines, "We did it. We actually did it!" The soldiers cheered. They cried. They embraced each other. These warriors who had descended into hell and somehow climbed back out. Of the 4,000 who had assaulted the station, only 500 survived. But they had saved humanity. In space, the battle was ending. Of 400 Vectari ships, 340 were destroyed. The remaining 60 broke formation and jumped to faster-than-light speed, fleeing the solar system. Captain Minho broadcast to all human ships, "Cease fire. They're running. Let them go. Let them tell their people what happened here." The human fleet regrouped, battered, damaged, but victorious. Of 600 ships, less than 200 remained operational. The cost had been staggering, but they had won. 3 weeks later, the Vectari Empire broadcast their surrender. The transmission came from their homeworld, light years away. The Vectari High Council spoke with voices that sounded tired and old. "Humanity of Earth, the Vectari Empire acknowledges defeat. We will withdraw all forces from your system. We will provide technological data as reparation. We ask only that you do not pursue us into deep space. We have learned our lesson. We underestimated you. We will not make that mistake again." Admiral Tejan, sitting in his command center in the Himalayas, listened to the surrender. Then he crafted his response carefully. "We accept your surrender. We will take your technology and learn from it. But understand this, we will pursue you, not for revenge, not for conquest, but to ensure you never threaten another species. Humanity is done hiding. We're coming out into the galaxy, and the galaxy will know what happens to those who try to destroy us." The transmission ended. Earth erupted in celebration. In the tunnels and underground cities, people cried and laughed and held each other. For the first time in over a year, they weren't at war. They had survived. 5 years passed. Earth slowly healed. Cities were rebuilt, though they looked different now. Harder, more functional. The population began to recover. Children were born who would never know the terror of invasion. Captain Minho, now Admiral Minho, commanded humanity's first deep space fleet. 2,000 warships built in the massive orbital shipyards around Mars. His mission was to explore, to establish human presence in the galaxy, and to make sure no species ever threatened Earth again. Dr. Yuna became Earth's chief science advisor. She continued studying alien psychology and technology,